evening, good afternoon. I'd like to call the work session for the Glen County Board of Education for May the 6th to order. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Spence for the items of information.
We'll start with the financial update from Ms. Preston.
So that's going to be our 2022 budget we'll start with. There's not a whole lot of changes for next year's budget right now. And I don't foresee many more. Of course, the teacher's retirement rate went from 19.06 to 19.81, and that is going to cost us about $500,000. Step increases for certified and classified, 1.7 and 7. So I went in there. I went ahead and put the calculation of what 50% of the fund balance is, and the excess we would be over that, which is about $5.5 million. To transfer to the local capital projects fund. New teaching positions, we need 2 at the middle school level. At Risley Middle to split reading and writing. We need 2 to maintain low class sizes at elementary. 2 ELL teachers because of the increase in segments. 2.5 SPED teachers because of the increase in segments, and 3 gifted for the same increase in segments. We're going to want to reinstate the purchasing clerk. That position's actually going to help purchasing and athletics, and then reinstate the assistant superintendent of operations, obviously. So that's a total of $9,768,800 for expenditures increasing, and 13.5 positions. I did get, if you go to the next page, I got the preliminary numbers from the tax assessor, and it looks like a growth of property values of 7%. But, you know, we have Senate Bill 486, and sometimes his numbers on that aren't always right. So I'm going to use 4% increase in the digest because the old motor vehicle way of collecting taxes is going down still. It should eventually go away. And I increased the Senate Bill 486 exemptions a little bit. Said that it basically produced a 4% increase in digest, but you know, last year we ended up coming in higher than I thought too, but we'll know in July where we are with that. We are losing QBE monies next year because we lost 483 FTEs, and that's almost $1 million. So if you see, we start the year with $23.4 million, and if I book a 5.5 operating transfer, we have an estimated ending balance of 20.7. Otherwise, that would be 26.2. Any questions on the general fund budget?
That internal capital funds, was it before that transfer? Is it about zeroed out?
It's there's 1.3 million sitting in there right now. And you know, in the past we've used that for buses.
I knew we used some of it recently, but
so just to give you an update on the CARES Act, you know, we got CARES Act 1, 2, and 3, and they're coming out with they're coming out now saying that you're going to have to meet some federal guidelines with this money, and they're really targeting the 3 pot, which is the largest pot. We are getting 20 million. We could potentially get 32 million of that if the state applies for the balance. The feds gave the state 65% and said if you want the rest, you have to come up with a plan and give it to us ahead of time and apply for it. So if we get it, we'll get the 20 plus a 12, another 12. Now 6% of that has to be spent on loss of learning, and that is calculated at the 32 million rate. So about 6.4 million has to be 20% of the 32 has to be designated for loss of learning. 6.4 million.
what does that mean for us in the system that, I know we had we were open the whole time.
Basically remediation for those kids. There were some kids last year, we shut down last year.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at those kids that are behind as a result of that, and some are home virtually. But
right. Okay.
But the key to that is, yeah, we have been open. So initially I was thinking, you know, they told us you can transfer salaries and your continuation of services, you can transfer salaries and benefits to this CARES Act money and save basically in your general fund money, whatever you transfer. Well, now they're kind of backpedaling, and I'm not doing that with any of the CARES Act 3 money. I am going to look at doing it with the CARES Act 1 and 2. I've already done it with the 1. And look at doing it with the $14 million of CARES Act 2. I just have to get to a comfortable spot on how much to do, because if the feds come in later and say, well, you didn't lose any money, you were in school the whole time, your teachers didn't get furloughed, you know, nobody lost out, why did you do this? So I have to get to a comfortable spot to see, okay, how much do I think we can safely move and save and eventually go into that local capital projects fund. And it can be sit there, and I would recommend that it sit there for at least a couple of years, and because we've got East Plus 4 going, 3 going, wrapping up 2. We don't need it for anything really yet, maybe buses, but I would sit on it for a little while to see if we do get audited, and if they do come in and say, you know, you shouldn't have done that much or whatever, and you have to pay it back. But anyway, it's been kind of frustrating to have a lot of money. Some of the things that we are looking at doing with CARES Act 3 is hiring additional parapros at each school to help out in the classrooms, like pull out for small group or just whatever. We're also, the 4 virtual academy teachers that we're hiring at each middle school, 1 at each middle school, that can go into the CARES Act. We wanted to add 2 social workers for next year out of the CARES Act, 2 psychologists in the CARES Act. They are looking at some kind of social emotional behavior training. It's called SEL, Trauma Skilled Schools.
Ms. Seals and Dr. Green will talk about that later.
These are just some of the things we're working on, but and then they want to look at a family community coordinator. I can move the Edgenuity licenses out of the general fund into CARES Act. The Read 180 that's on here tonight is going into CARES Act. There's monies for summer school for the next 3. So this money expires September 2023. So you've got 22 school year. I'm sorry, 2024. You've got 22, 23, and 24 school years to spend this. And they're trying to ramp up summer schools in the summer. We're going to hire a coordinator to actually oversee this loss of learning pot of money. Read 180, I mentioned. The Chromebooks, I know I've mentioned this, can come out of CARES Act. We're going to do Promethean boards. Where we don't have them, we're going to just finish that off out of CARES Act. And then we bought some PPE stuff this year that can go in, that has gone in CARES Act, and some masks for the band. And we're looking at maybe a Syntagix campus monitoring piece, but we've got expenditures earmarked that we're all talking about to the tune of about 17.4 million. So out of the 20, we've got about 17.4 earmarked as of right now.
Can we roll back? You know, let some of you hear this. Can we roll back PBIS and bring back the STARS program?
Well, that SEL Trauma Skilled Schools isn't that? Oh no, that's PBI. That's behavior. Right. That's social emotional. I don't know about that. Anyway.
All right, you want to move down to right here, move down to proposed action item A.
Okay, financial, March financial.
Yeah.
There was only one budget amendment that changed the overall expenditures in the general fund, and that was a decrease of the CTA industry certification grant. Oh, I'm sorry, and then a second budget amendment where we got some extra money for a hygiene grant in the general fund. The year-to-date revenues represent 87.4% of the budget, and if you look, we are about 99% collected on local taxes. local tax receipts for March were 516. Year-to-date expenses represent 70.4% of the budget, and we're 75% through the year. So we have savings because, you know, I did use the CARES Act 1 money to move general fund expenditures to CARES Act, so that's some of that savings right there. If, you know, when I do this every month, that local capital projects fund is a part of this report. It's like, it's called Fund 30, Capital Projects Fund. It's right after the general fund, and it has, oh, I'm sorry, it's right, as of right now, it's got $1.1 million in it. But that's where the 5.5 million will go to when we do an operating transfer. Any questions on March?
Just keep going down the list.
Yes, sir. So Frontline is our substitute management software. It's up for renewal. It's out of the general fund, $31,996.71. And applicant tracking, that's right, it does both. That company does both substitutes and applicant tracking. That's up for vote on Tuesday. The REAV 180 renewal is the Hufflin Mifflin proposal of $50,000. It's the licensing for REAV 180. And that is coming out of CARES Act. And then the last one is we needed additional Chromebook carts. After we got all those Chromebooks, you know, the carts typically fit 35 in a cart, but they were wanting more carts to be able to have like class sets of like 20, 25. So we're using CARES Act money to buy those too. And that's, the lowest bidder is $80,430.24 on that. I will say that we are a little bit concerned with that bid. Stephen came to me to tell me that they were extremely low on their bidding price, but we have no reason to not move forward with the lowest bidder because they met the bidding specs. So we'll see if when we award the bid, if they decide, we don't have them or can't sell them to you. I don't know.
How many carts?
We are getting 132. 132.
And the carts will be placed in each individual classroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Even the special needs or the confined?
Well, so that would, I don't know if they'll be.
We want to place them in the
because there's only
homeroom
like
classrooms in
7.
elementary school and the homeroom classrooms in middle school. So if they are special needs in a classroom, like that's their homeroom, yes, they will have the cards. But most of our special needs students are collaborative students who would be in a regular education class with other students, so the carts will be in there.
So the students who are confined will not receive a Chromebook or?
Yeah, they will, they'll have one in their room.
The
If that's their
confined
homeroom,
students
yeah.
too? Okay.
These are the
Yeah.
carts. We
Right,
have
I was thinking
enough
about the
Chromebooks for
Chromebooks.
every student in the class, in the building.
Even the ones in the confined classroom?
Yes.
Yeah, that's their homeroom. If it's their homeroom, then that's where we'll have the carts.
So that's all that I have.
All right.
think.
Any questions for Preston? Thank you.
Do you need me to stay for executive?
Dr. Whitehead.
Hello.
No.
So we, we've made it to May. I think that's our nicest update related to COVID this year for sure. And, continue to report out daily and weekly cases that we have. And for our district, for this week's data, we're at 101 for the rate per 100,000 that we've been looking at each time that we've talked about it during our meetings. The governor did make some changes Friday to some other areas related to COVID in the executive orders. Things that stayed the same included for education that we shall implement the measures according to the guidance from the Georgia Department of Public Health and the Centers for Disease Control. which includes our quarantine and isolation procedures that we've had in place. And so those pieces were still listed in the executive order as of Friday.
So they're gonna stay the same as far as 6 feet and not 3 feet like the CDC where
We've been able to do 3 feet if they have masks on. So that's the CDC guidance, is 3
as
feet
far as
with
you can
masks.
sit 3 feet away, but you're
Yes.
still in quarantine them if you're 6 feet away.
That's correct.
So what's the point of doing the 3 feet? That's
Right.
my
Yes.
biggest.
Yeah, it's been the confusing point since they made the change, but yes.
That makes no damn sense.
They've not updated the quarantine guidance for distance on that. I know that Mr. Medalla asked at the last meeting about the rate of flu, and I've been working to get additional data on that, and what I was finally able to get is actually a statewide report, but comparing the same week, which they call week 20, for 19, 20, and 21. And when you look at the outbreak of influenza in 19, they had what they considered 81 influenza outbreaks. In 2020, there were 100 outbreaks, and in 2021, there were 0. And when we look at the case rates by age group, particularly for what we would be dealing with within the 5 to 24-year-old, up through 2021 so far, as of week 15, there were 323 visits to physician related to, or hospital related to flu. So 323, and that's compared to 5 to 24, let's see. The cumulative data for 2020 was 43,134, and the cumulative data for 2021 is 9,688. So significant difference, which I think you probably had.
Yeah, I knew that. I
estimated
just
was
wanted
gonna-
that
yeah.
to be shared for
Yeah.
somebody else.
So that was the data on flu that I was able, and I'm happy to share these full reports with you if you're interested in them. They show graphs over time and geographic impact over time.
If you could email that, if you don't mind.
I will. I can forward that,
Thank you.
certainly.
We have a new manager in the lab department at the hospital. I'll get her card to you if you needed a contact person for there.
Okay, great.
She seems pretty good.
Just the other update I would give you is the schools are planning their end of year graduations and celebrations, and I've heard from most schools so far, and everybody has a plan that they're comfortable with, that will have participation to celebrate their students here at the end of the year. So I don't know what other questions you may have related to the COVID pieces.
Did you find out if the quarantine guidelines was a requirement or a recommendation? Is it a requirement?
According to the executive order, it says we shall implement additional measures to prevent the spread, including guidance put out by the Georgia Department of Public Health and Centers for Disease Control.
So you're taking that as it's a requirement, right? That's-
The shall tells
okay.
me that it's not may, it's,
Yeah, Mays, if you want to, shall
Well,
is better.
well, my thing is, if we're gonna quarantine kids, I think that, I would recommend we stay 6 feet apart, because we're gonna catch more kids if somebody does get sick, so I'm not sure why we'd even drop back to 3 feet if we're quarantining more kids, so that's been my problem the whole time, is we've quarantined so many kids, and the exposure rate, and I guess the kids that have gotten COVID from being within 6 feet is so minimal. That's where this data doesn't support what we've seen. But that'd be my recommendation as far as a system. I don't see why we'd want to be 3 feet if we're going to quarantine up to 6. I understand there's certain classes, like the one my daughter was in, that your computers can only be so far. But if they're able to spread out 6 feet, I don't see why we would put them 3 feet.
And I think for the most part, unless it's a necessity, they
Right.
maintain their distancing that they've had, because the schools know that they have to quarantine within 6 feet.
Right.
I would support that as well.
I mean, especially with it being May, I know we've pushed so hard, and we've made it this far, and testing's about to start and everything else, so
We're wide open.
that was my
Ain't about
biggest
to start, it
issue.
has started.
Well, which was the issue I ran into, is the fact that, my daughter being 5.975 feet away and got quarantined, and it's just, certain kids are going to struggle, and I hope we keep that, and I hope the state as well as us locally are keeping that in consideration, that we have quarantined a lot of kids throughout the year, and I hope our test scores, we may do all right, but
Yeah, I
they
think,
could reflect that as well.
I think it is our plan internally, to do like an after action, debrief, and just examine all our data from this whole school year and determine, things that worked for us well and things that we had concerns. And it would be my hope then that we could have that same conversation statewide even, and include, DPH and whoever else they want to have in that conversation, but to be able to talk about things. So that we can be proactive, and then also in the response that we have to take for anything in the future, it takes all those pieces into consideration.
Thank you.
Some generalities from the hospital that goes into that. The ICUs are still, we still have 3, not 2, which we've had historically, and they're continuing to be 90% plus full. COVID has been in the teens and stayed there in the lower teens. It's been pretty consistent. It's bumping very little. Nothing like the 50s and 60s that we were seeing, but the ICUs are still packed. So, and the hospital is still packed, and and it's not necessarily COVID related. It's delay of care because of not wanting to go to the hospital, possibly catch COVID, which is what we're saying that possibly is because. So, as in general, that's what's going on there. And this is normally the low season, not the high season. So,
Do we know how many people have been received the vaccine locally? Do you have those numbers, or is that available? You know?
They
I
are,
could get you that.
yeah, they're working
Tuesday.
on updating it on the DPH site. But as far as like having just in our county, that's where we're having trouble getting like a kind of good figure on that. But I do know that the high schools are reporting that a number of the high school students are getting the vaccine. So they're getting closer, a lot of them are getting closer to the fully vaccinated stage, even as we finish out school. And then they've announced this week that they're about to open up Pfizer for, I believe, 14 to 16 or 12 to 16. I can't remember, but it's actually, they're going to drop it down another age range for that particular vaccine.
I'll get you that number from the hospital.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'll just be interested to see how many people in our county is taking advantage of the availability of the vaccine.
But the hospital just give you what we've done, and there's a little bit more with the health department. I'll try to get that, but it's Friday, so it's,
Yeah.
I could get a little
it's
difficult.
It's no big, I mean, if you want to shoot it to me, just be
I'll
good
see if I can
information.
find it.
You want to move down to the proposed action items, Dr. Whitehead?
Yes, sir.
I had
Oh,
a
go
question
ahead.
first. So, we're hearing a lot about the mask, and I just want to get a feel from the group. I mean, how do we feel about this? We're headed into May. I'm looking, we had 4 cases last week and 5 so far this week out of 12,000 something students. So is there anybody that is interested in pulling the mask mandate and making it just recommended for the school year? Or,
You're talking about this school year?
yeah.
For this school year, for me, it's no. But I would certainly be open to looking at it in the future.
So we're already talking about a summer school where it's potentially
I am
recommended.
removing the mask mandate the day students get out of school in our school buildings.
Here's one thing that has concerned me a little bit. So we're doing testing, and milestone testing, I guess, varies in length of time by the subject matter, or the subject that's being tested. But there are some tests that were given that are 3-hour-long tests, and I'm starting to think that, with the vaccines available to a lot of people, I just wonder if we're doing the right thing by keeping the mask on. And I just wondered what everybody else thought.
You sent a very good article out. I'm not going to give my opinion of the article. I think anybody and everybody should read it and give their opinion without hearing somebody else's first, like you shared with me, which I thought was great. But us looking at it as a group is something I would certainly be interested in. And when the governor says drops the mandate and makes it that, all about getting rid of a mask.
Well, there are a lot of places that we go in the community and you can look around and there's not a lot of masks right now. And this is what we're seeing in our
Yeah.
schools with not a lot of masks out there. So at some point, we've got to cut the cord. When I said that I was in favor of it initially, I said I don't want it to be something that where we slap the mask on every time the flu rate increases or something like that. This was a very unusual situation, and I feel like we've come to the point where the benefit of the mask might not outweigh the side effects of the mask for some people. And we're talking about CARES Act money going towards SEL, the social emotional learning, and it's because they're recognizing that their social emotional issues stemming from what we've gone through in the past year. I mean, just a thought.
I'm with you. We need to have an open conversation about continuing it, and I'm open.
So,
I would be open to strongly recommending in the conversation to have it. My question would be also, with that being said, if kids are not wearing masks, what's the guidelines on that? Is it still 6 feet? I'd be open to doing that based on our numbers. That's just my personal opinion. Because they're going to be quarantined anyway, and our exposure, we're just based on our exposure rate. That's where I base mine.
We have less than, what, 3 weeks in school?
there are
We close.
15 days.
So we cannot keep the lesson until the end of this school year, then revisit the issue?
I just wonder, I mean, to bring some sort of normalcy to the close of this school year.
I'd be more in favor of finishing out the year. We've done this for the entire year and not bringing it back for next year. I mean, we've made it this far, the numbers are staying low, and folks will be traveling for the summer. Personally, I don't think that we'll have an outbreak in the schools between now and the end of the school year, but I don't want to take the chance for those parents that want to go on vacation this summer.
Well, we've seen spikes after our breaks, and we didn't see that after spring break. We did see a higher number in the first week of the last 4 than we have seen in the other weeks. But those cases were stemming from what you did over spring break, and most of those people never came back to school. So I just thought maybe we're at a point. The community transmission index is at 101. We kept saying 100. We would go back into the green. And I mean, to me, that's as close as we've gotten all year, and it's pretty close. And, I'm not saying we go, back to completely normal, but just allow the kids and the parents to make a decision about how they're going to finish out the school year.
It's kind of, we're in a unique situation because we have to look out for everybody's child and all the teachers, everything else. But, it does become a personal situation where, and I've said it before, when we're having events at our facilities that, beauty pageants, for instance, and whether they're school sponsored or not, they're at our schools. And so you're not having them on there, and then everybody's hugging all over each other afterwards, and there's no mask on. And, my last child is graduating from 5th grade, and they're going to have a ceremony, but I don't really want them to walk across with a mask on, either. And he's one of those that are at risk. I mean, he's at huge risk. But we've shown that, I know the kids have had issues. I know you've seen it, and I hate that. It's been terrible, I know, especially for frontline workers. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think we're transmitting it at school. I say, and I don't know whether it's a mask or not. I don't know. I think y'all have done a monumental job. Teachers and staff, everybody has done a great job. My kids are still, the whole milestones test angst is still real, and I think Evie has a point that the mask may add to that a little bit. Are we on TV right now? Okay, I can't say that. So my kids, well, I'll just say I don't care anymore. So, they're talking about it being, not stressed out. They've never been really, they'll do fine, I'm sure, but like most kids will. But I don't want to say it doesn't matter this year, but everything we've made it through, I'm like, if you drop 10 points on the milestones, the sun's gonna come up tomorrow, son, and you're gonna go to 6th grade and it's gonna be fine. So I don't want to say I'm neutral on it, but I would love to see us, have it just recommended for the rest of the year, but I'm really not going to lose any sleep if we keep them. We've made it this far. That's what I was telling parents that have approached me about it. We've come this far, whether you believe in masks or not. We've made it this far. I do agree with shutting it off the day school's out. I think summer school you can separate and keep folks apart better in summer school just based on numbers. You've got access to bigger rooms, or whatever you have to do. I don't know what your plans are exactly, but it seems like it'll be a little bit easier to distance during summer school. But talking in circles, I could live with it. I'd love to see us just to make it optional for the rest of the year, but not going to lose any sleep either way, I guess.
Thank you.
Maybe, do we want to bring it up on Tuesday, just kind of at least have it, I don't know if we want to make it into some more of a vote, or whether we strongly recommend or not, but I would think I would be up for that, if you.
Yeah,
like
if
that,
everybody wants to
Ms.
think on it and talk about it again on Tuesday.
And again, I'm definitely not for everybody to take your mask off, but I think given the small percentage that probably would take their mask off, their parents may recommend it.
And I don't, sorry, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but I do feel like that over the years, there are definitely things that are administrative decisions or issues. I think although this is unique, I think that's one of those cases where it's probably the superintendent's decision. Now, do I feel like we could also take a vote as a board to override that? Sure. But I think that ultimately, it's an administrative kind of decision, and that, it's like it's been all along, right? You've made that decision. We've supported it. We haven't taken a vote to support it. I don't think so. But, I think we could definitely take a vote if we wanted to. We felt strong enough to overturn it. But I still think at this point it's an administrative decision.
Yeah,
For what that's worth.
When we started this, it was a recommendation from us to Dr. Spence,
Right.
because at that point in time, the way the protocol structure was, is that masks were gonna be strongly recommended. And that was a different situation, definitely
Right.
back in August, but, I don't really see it as necessarily a vote, but similar to what we did in the beginning.
Sure.
As a
Or
recommendation.
recommendation.
Yeah, just, here's the way we're feeling and.
I think it'd be good for the superintendent to hear what we think and make our recommendation like we did in the very beginning, where he can make his decision based on what he feels like we as a community, because that's who we represent, would like to see, so.
Well, and two, there are options. It doesn't have to be an all or none on this. It could be from, those little kids have had a heck of a year, and there's a lot of an emotional connection, I think, with elementary school students and their school year and their friends and their teachers and stuff like that. So, if we looked at a portion of, I know there are school systems that never mask the youngest kids. They only mask the older kids. So, y'all think on it, and we can revisit on Tuesday, and we'll be down to 12 days of school at that point.
Short timers.
Yeah.
What are you, an accountant, man?
We can add that to the, just the discussion on that, and we'll bring it back up.
All right,
All right, great.
Dr. Whitehead, you want to go down to 3G?
G is the review of the 2022-2023 school year calendar. That draft has been posted. To give you just an overview, the focus group met with representation from teachers, parents, community members, admin, to take a look at that, and board members as well, to give a review. It's similar to what we're going to have in place for next year, with one change being to start employees on contract the first day of August. A lot of times that has been shown as like new teacher orientation. to start all teachers on contract that date allows new employees to gain benefits a month sooner than they would be able to have coverage for their benefits. And so that was a request from HR to move the contract date to be the first date of the month. And the little plaid color is like half PL, half planning to represent that, so that schools spend the days halfway that way. And then October, where this year and next year, I believe it's this way next year, the 7th would have been a teacher work day because we moved the calendar back. That actually now makes that a long weekend for teachers and students to be able to have a mini fall break in October. And spring break is actually a week further into this calendar because it would then follow Easter. And there's been a request, I know Dr. Jurgen has asked us to look at Good Friday in the past, and so this calendar would give students Good Friday off. If we didn't need that day for a weather makeup day. And that's noted at the very bottom, that March 13th and April 7th would be designated weather makeup days if needed. But again, it allows us to finish first semester before we leave for the Christmas holidays, and has us finishing up before Memorial Day for students, as well as being able to have staff complete their contracts before the start of June for anybody retiring. I don't know if you have any particular questions or comments about the proposal.
What's the number breakdown? It's not 90 and 90,
85,
never.
93.
85, 93?
Mhm.
What was our school start date, or what is it, 2021, 2022?
I believe we're starting on Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Okay,
This
so
next
this is
school
a
week.
day
It's just one
difference,
day.
we're pushing it back a day.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was to accommodate starting employees on the 1st.
Okay.
We've been fortunate, we've had community members to include, business owners and chamber members and those things that have come to represent that group. And when they see it all and hear the context for it, they had positive comments overall about the pieces. And as reminders, we started looking at the mini fall break in October. One of the reasons that prompted some of that discussion to have that in place moving forward is October, because of we're that far into it at that point, becomes a high discipline data month for us. And so having just kind of a way to alleviate some of that long stretch seems to have been helpful for the schools, and they've had positive feedback on having that time to help alleviate some of those concerns.
That's correct. It's just, I know this is like not even on the subject, but it just blows my mind. You can't keep it together for 180 days. You can't keep it together for 30 days. My kid, by God, and I won't even get started, but I didn't even answer the Brunswick News the other day. I mean, they had the nerve to email me and ask me, what are we going to do to keep kids safe at Brunswick High? How about telling your kid not to bring a damn knife to school? How about that? How about keeping your kid and tell them to sit in their damn chair for 30 days, if they can handle it? Not even 30 days, 20. Jeez. Whatever. Goodness gracious.
I just took a quick look at the calendar for this coming year. So it is a Tuesday that we start.
Oh, we are starting on Tuesday as well.
It's
Yep.
Tuesday, but it's the 10th.
Gotcha.
Um,
I knew it was like a
So
day
it's-
off, and so it was actually the.
So I guess having the earlier start date and so it can end before June outweighs, because for years and years and years we heard we gotta start on Thursday, Friday, so high schools have the opportunity to come back on the weekends and figure out all the scheduling nightmares. So they're okay with that. The registrars and counselors, everybody was okay with.
They've actually backed up like
Okay.
some of their processes, and I think they're having
That's
schedules
just something
ready
we heard for
ahead
you,
of time.
and that's fine with me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just because it's gonna fall on them one way or the other.
Yes.
But if they're okay with it, that's fine with me. August 9th is my birthday. Just so you know, just put that out there.
You'll get to go to a board meeting.
Yeah, this happened a lot in my 17 years. First day of school.
We'll move down to
So if you don't have any other questions on that, we'll have that on Tuesday's meeting for approval as well. And then the next action item that I have is for H, and this is for the 21st Century After School Program. We'll continue to operate through the summer for Goodyear, Altama, and Burroughs Millette. And this is a purchase of some individual handheld tutors that they'll be able to use during the summer and then carry on using next school year. The devices are kind of in a game format, multimedia, and they'll have cartridges that they would use in the devices that are aligned to the Georgia Standards of Excellence. So it gives them kind of a fun way to practice, but it'll keep them working on content related to school through the school year. And so this would be purchased using those 21st Century Grant funds.
Excuse me.
Any questions for Dr. Whitehead? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Boudreaux.
I know, right?
That's good enough.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Al.
I've got my posse with me today. Just in case.
Got has backup.
Yeah, we do. All right, let's get started here. The first item is the Glen Academy Physical Education Edition. All the underground work and water and sewer work is complete. They're going to pour their first set of footers tomorrow, so that's well underway and on schedule and looking pretty good. Alabama Elementary School is plugging along. I mean, we're watching it week by week, and we'll have a plan for whatever that little job throws us. So we're still hopeful that we're going to get in it for the beginning of school, but we'll be able to plan accordingly and hopefully in a few weeks. Center for the Arts.
We got a response from the college about 4:30 today, and so I have that printed for you to read.
All right. East Plus 4. I think on the next report, we will probably go ahead and list our beginning East Plus 4 projects like Golden Isles, Oglethorpe, Needwood, St. Simon's, so I can get a little more detail on each one of those. Next week, we hope to start getting, well, in June, we hope to start getting some GMP pricing put together so that we can bring it to the board in July for approval and get those jobs started. Hopefully, in the June meeting, we will have a GMP for the site work at St. Simon's, which is really important to do this summer. That's going to be the demolition of the track and try to get the water and sewer worked on, get rid of the portable building, just so that we don't disrupt the school year with that. But hopefully we'll have that in the next meeting in June and have more in July to really get things kicked off really well. With that, after Dr. Salmon does his report, if I could, I'll just stay in and do E and F on the bottom.
That's fine.
And we're happy to have Dr. Salmon back to
Oh, yeah.
represent the GOOD Management Group. Give his report.
It's actually good to be anywhere. Got 3 or 4 things I wanted to point out on the report. So I was talking about the schedule and the things are on the front. They're basically summarized there. And then as you look over actually on page 3 of the report, I think Sal mentioned it when he was here a couple of months ago, but I did want to mention remind everyone the SPLOST 3 receipts are finished, were finished in January. Total receipts for that $114 million that you see there in the blue purple area, which are very good. And also we've added a couple more sheets. The next one, if you look at page 4, it's a very brief summary of what's going on right now in SPLOST 4. You can see you've got several of those that have started. A lot of things still to be determined as far as scope, budget, those kind of things. You do have your 2 gym floors that have been awarded. You do have the roof at Needwood that has been awarded. But that's the tentative schedule, and as more information comes in, we'll continue to fill those lines in a little more. If you look at page 5, you can see your receipts sheet, which was a little bit of a surprise when we saw it, almost $2.5 million. That's the highest it's ever been without that September or October number, where you had a major adjustment from several years. So as far as regular month receipts, this is the highest you've ever had. And we do carry right now for the next 2 years $1,750,000 budget. So that's a $723,000 number over the budget, which is not bad. But if any of you have been to either of the islands or tried to get a room on the interstate, You got a lot of folks coming out, everybody's ready to travel after being cooped up for a while. And then the last sheet, I've started that little chart that shows the receipts, again, against the budget of $1,750,000. You can see you were at $1,009,000, then almost $1,009,000, and then this month up to almost to 2.5. So it does look good. Again, you got 114 out of 3. You know, in your votes, you're limited 4 to 112 million. But your net money could be more because right now we're not looking at a bond. So you've got that $6 million interest. So if you get 112, which I think you will, you'll have another, basically, you'll have a little more net money because you're not spending $6 million like you did because you have 108 net after paying the $6 million interest on your bonds of your 114 and 3. If that makes sense. I think I started that backwards. But anyway, you'll be in good shape for that. But, anyway, sir, there's this.
Thank you very much.
And your more detailed report is on the website.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
My next action item is the review of the site application for St. Simon's Elementary School replacement and renovations. The state, since we're building a new building, they require us to have a brand new site assessment and site application. It's the standard DOE fare. It's pretty straightforward. It just needs to be approved by the board before I can submit it. But we do have our environmental assessment that goes along with this, and once it's approved Tuesday, I will send it to the state, and hopefully we can continue to get their comments on our plan development with this.
Kind of scroll by, but the acreage right there, is that just for that site, or is that the entire, how big is that whole site? Is it 5 acres?
5.1 acres. And it's small for a 550 school, I can tell you that. But I don't think we're going to have any problem with it. Since it's been a school for 50 years.
Yeah, I agree.
60, yeah, but that's if it was a new school, we wouldn't have a chance.
Right.
But existing school, I think we have a good plan. Since we're going 2-story, we're going to net a little more usable space, I think, than what they have now. So hopefully that'll go. And with that, I had to submit a rationale for, we're applying for a waiver to the state
Right.
minimum size. So I've included that in the application as well. So that'll be on for Tuesday night.
You can retire as soon as that gets approved, and as soon as Altama's finished, then you can. So,
Okay. Next item is the discussion of the pump station improvements for Altama Elementary School. This is a not-to-exceed contract with Roberts Civil Engineering, not to exceed $59,500 to design the improvements to 2 lift stations that are downstream from the new Altama Elementary School. Even though the school can open with these pump stations the way they are, the theory is there that they won't hold up for very long. So long term, this is work that needs to be done. Unfortunately, the engineering is very expensive. If this gets approved, we're going to meet with the joint water and sewer folks and Wednesday.
If it's approved.
And, you know, just plead with them to help us expedite the process so that our engineers don't spend so many hours just going through the process. With that, hopefully we can keep this way under the $59,500. So I don't know what else we can do, to be honest with you. So we'll ask you to approve that Tuesday night as well.
Any further questions for Mr. Boudreaux?
Mr. Tootin, does that sound even halfway reasonable to you? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you know more about it than any of us.
You know, I probably don't in terms of municipal water and sewer systems. I really just don't have any experience in that. Obviously what they're selling is time and expertise, and there is a lot of time in dealing with the water and sewer authority in order to get things cleared and such. So I honestly don't have anything to compare it with.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Boudreaux?
Thank you.
Finally, I have Ms. Seals here to talk about additional staff.
The replacing of their pumps will be the other question. Follow up, so once we get through this.
Double the size. Leave it at that. Give me $10. We're good.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And I have someone with me, Dr. Green.
Hello again.
Hello.
Additional staff, and Ms. Preston talked a little bit about the additional staff earlier in regards to the CARES Act and the CARES Relief Fund that we received, those monies that we received. Dr. Spence even mentioned a little bit about it, but some things we're trying to do is to be proactive when school returns, and we'll be using the CARES Act money to pay for a lot of these positions. We are proposing the following positions to aid our schools and students in recovering any academic and instructional ground that may have been lost as a result of COVID-19 using those CARES Act funds. Paraprofessionals at elementary, each elementary, middle school, high school, and FACES as well. We're looking at a supplemental support coordinator who will basically oversee that pot of money to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's there. We're also looking at some 49% teaching and learning coaches to help assist schools in meeting those needs of students as they return back to school full time. Possibly some lead teachers at our high impact schools who have been disproportionately affected by that. A parent support and outreach coordinator that addresses the social, emotional, mental, and academic needs of families who may have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And someone to be hands-on with parents to help leverage school and community resources. Dr. Green, do you have anything additionally with that one?
Yeah, actually, I would like the opportunity to talk just a little bit more about the fact that we do have an opportunity to engage our marginalized communities more so. We know that with parent engagement, most of the participation, 75% or more, is obviously high socioeconomic parents. So this is an opportunity to really have somebody grassroots in communities. I know I said earlier to Ms. Seals, if this person is in the building, then they're not doing their job. And so we really want somebody that's out. We will have a significant issue with addressing truancy next year, and so we want to have this person to tie in and provide some support opportunities to parents who make a lot of excuses for kids. And so we want to try to eliminate those excuses and get kids back engaged and get them back in. So essentially that's the work for next year of this position.
Also, too, not necessarily a position, but looking to provide a supplement or some sort for a lead school counselor to help meet those needs, evidence-based practices, and supporting and monitoring particular suicide prevention policy and pieces like that. Point person for support and training with student advisement programs for our middle and high school students, and helping with those mental health and behavioral issues. Also, too, and Ms. Preston mentioned about the school psychologist being able to address that, but I think sometimes people think of school psychologists as only doing testing, but when we have enough, we can actually provide additional support to address trauma and anxiety and other behavioral issues that we have already started to see creep up before COVID-19, and since COVID-19 is really presenting as issues for our students. And finally, she also talked about school social workers as well, or a licensed clinical social worker to provide those wraparound services for our parents as well too. So all of this will come from the CARES Act.
It's important to know that once we get to 2024 and that money has to be spent, those jobs will not remain unless we see the need to keep it.
Well, thank you for answering my question before I asked it.
Apparently
you
it
knew.
looks like a lot, but we have, again, we need to spend this money to take care of the people who lost the learning and who are having trouble. So this is, you know, hopefully we can make these changes before 2024. One or two of these positions we may ask to keep, but for right now, it's understanding that it's only until we run out of money, out of the CARES Act money.
There's significant psych issues within the community that are appearing from social distancing and isolation. So, I mean, it's there, the data's there, it's pretty easy to read. So I think it's a good idea.
We want to be prepared.
It's coming. It's just
Are there any questions for Ms. Seals or Dr. Green? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That is all I have, Chairman Edwards.
All righty. That'll bring us down to number 4, executive session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
No.
Moved by Mr. McDowell.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Sam, second by Mr. McDowell. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Mansell is not going to be with us today. right, entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Yergin,
Second.
second by Ms. Gibbons. All those in favor? It's unanimous at 6:41.
I make a motion, we approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Personnel report A. Hear the motion on the
Second.
floor. Get a second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0. No Jerry. All right, and then the other with Ms. Sims?
Yeah, I just want to say to our teachers that it's the end of Teacher Appreciation Week, and who knew a year ago, well, 2 years ago, we would be facing a year like this. And I just appreciate all that everybody has done. Teachers especially, they're with those students day in and day out, and we really value their position with us and what they do for our community.
100%. Well said.
Any other? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Holsey, second by Ms. Gibbons. All those in favor? Motion passes
Ready.
6-0 at 6:42.